Hey there, welcome back to our Rev Games Academy. In today's tutorial, we're going to walk through how to create a fully functional settings menu. The menu will have three main sections: audio, graphics, and controls, and will ensure that all settings persist by saving and loading them automatically. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have a polished settings menu ready for your game, and we'll dive right into it. All right, let's get started by setting up the user interface for our settings menu. First, in Unity's hierarchy, you want to right-click, go to UI, and choose Canvas. You can rename it to Settings Canvas. Next, ensure the canvas render mode is set to screen space, camera, and the inspector to render the UI relative to a specific camera, ensuring it interacts with the camera's depth and perspective. After setting the render mode to screen space camera, drag and drop the main camera into the render camera reference field in the inspector to link the UI to the camera. On the canvas scaler, set the UI to scale relative to the screen size and specify a standard resolution, such as 1920 by 1080 for landscape mode. If you need more guidance on canvas setup, please refer to our previous videos on this playlist. Now let's begin to develop our UI for the settings pop-up screen. The settings screen will allow users to adjust volume, mute or unmute, control graphic quality, change control modes, and more. Let's add these features to our UI. We will also create separate pop-up screens for audio, graphics, and controls to organize the settings more effectively. By default, it's a good practice to create an empty game object inside the canvas, followed by a background image, and then an image for the settings pop-up. Creating an empty game object inside the canvas keeps the hierarchy organized and provides centralized control for scaling and alignment. This approach ensures flexibility and ease of future updates. Once you've created the structure, you can fully stretch the background image and adjust properties like color to match your design. You can also adjust the size of the settings pop-up screen to match your design requirements. Next, import your images into Unity for elements like buttons, background screens, and pop-up screens, then assign them to the appropriate UI components. Once you've imported the images, start by assigning the sprite for the pop-up screen. Next, let's create a TextMesh Pro object for the settings title. Once the object is created, assign the title in the TextMesh Pro component in the inspector and adjust its properties like font size, style, vertex color, and font assets, as we covered in our previous videos. You can also import free fonts from websites like 1001fonts.com, download the font, and then import it into Unity. Once imported, you can save it in the font asset creator and it will be added to your font assets, ready to be selected from the list. Once you've selected the font asset, you can adjust the position and the rect transforms anchor and pivot points of your settings title to position it properly on the screen. Once done, save your changes and start creating the button UI component for the settings screen. Let us begin by creating the audio button. Once we've created an audio button, we can assign an image to it, adjust its position and size, and customize its text as needed. You can also explore the various properties of the individual components in the inspector window. We can also consider scaling the button, provided the sprite quality does not degrade significantly. The audio button will be used for navigating to the audio settings screen where users can adjust settings such as mute, unmute, and volume. Make sure to attach a navigation script to your button's on-click component for the navigation to work. A navigation script uses methods such as setActive of true or setActive of false to enable or disable the visibility of game objects such as panels in the scene. Next, to create the graphics button, we can duplicate the audio button game object by selecting it and pressing Ctrl+D. renaming it to Graphics Button. Once done, let's adjust the position and the rect transform for the graphics button. The graphics button will be used to navigate to the graphics settings screen where users can adjust the quality. We can repeat the same process for our controls button as well. The controls button is used to navigate to the controls settings screen where the user can select the mode of play, such as mouse, keyboard, joystick, etc. As we did earlier, we can adjust the position and rect transform for the controls button. Once we have completed setting up all three buttons, let's adjust their positions by holding Control and selecting all three buttons. Then, press W to move the transform and position them accordingly. Next, let's create a pop-up screen for the audio settings. You can simply select the settings pop-up screen and duplicate it by pressing Ctrl+D. Once done, you can rename it accordingly, change the title name, and delete the unnecessary game objects, which is not required on your screen. Next, you can create a Text Mesh Pro component for the sound toggle, and followed by that, you can create one for the volume slider. You can adjust the properties under main settings such as font asset, font style, font size, etc. Make sure to adjust the position and rect transform as needed. You can duplicate the text for the volume button just as we did before by clicking on the text and pressing Ctrl+D to duplicate it. Make sure to adjust the position and rect transform as needed. Now let's move on to creating a toggle for our sound button. The toggle will serve as the mute or unmute button for the sound. We have a background game object and a checkmark game object inside the created toggle, where we can assign an off image for the background and an on image for the checkmark. Make sure to adjust the width and height as needed. Adjust the position and rect transform as well as needed. We can also check the Is On checkbox to display the checkmark image. Let's test it once by clicking the play button. All right, we can finally see that the toggle is working. Next, let us create a volume slider for adjusting the volume of sound. In Unity, the slider component includes a handle, fill area, and background, all of which can be assigned images and vertex colors to fit your requirements. Make sure to fine-tune the properties of the slider to fit your requirements. As discussed, you can assign images for the slider background, handle, and fill area. You can attach scripts to the toggle and volume slider, which we will cover in our Audio in Unity tutorials playlist. Once you've made the necessary changes, test the slider and fine-tune it as needed. You can see that the slider moves according to the adjustments made by the user. Finally, you can create a back button to navigate back from the screen if needed. Remember, you need to add navigation functionality to your button's on-click component through scripting for the navigation to work. And that's it. We've successfully created our settings pop-up and audio pop-up. In our part 2 video, we will create the pop-ups for the graphics settings and the controls settings. If you found this guide helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more Unity tutorials. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.